Hi, welcome to another episode of MYD Global. I'm your host, Leanne Hackman-Carty. In today's episode, I speak with Zale Tabakman, who is the founder of Locally Grown Salads. His solution is something that every community should be looking at right now, whether you've experienced a natural disaster like hurricanes, or drought, or flooding, or even COVID. One of the things that often happens is the food chain is compromised, and it's very difficult to get certain types of products, including things like salads and fresh produce. So I'm talking to Zale about his solution and how he is looking at ways to help communities around the world be more sustainable when it comes to their food security. So stay tuned. There we go. Hey Zale, good to see you. How are you doing today?
Good, Leanne. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So before we get started, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself, your background?
Okay, so I'm president of Local Grown Salads, and we're a company that grows stuff inside under lights in warehouses. So we can grow anywhere in the far Arctic to the hot Sahara Desert, or north in Calgary, or anywhere we are. And we're setting up different licensed facilities around the place. Our technology is Canadian. We developed technology. We have patent pending on the technology. And it's primarily high volume stuff. So in one of our facilities, about 15,000 square feet, which is, we kind of look at it as one facility, two facilities. Each produces about 1.5 million pounds a year. So to put that, most people don't even know what that means. So if you think of those salad bags that you typically buy in the store, you open up the bag, you dump it into a bowl. Those are about 5 ounces. So we produce about 6 million of those bags of salads a year out of one of the 15,000 square foot facilities. So we go into building 60,000, we would put four 15,000 square foot facilities and produce that. So that's kind of what I do and what I'm focused in on.
So when it comes to disasters, whether they're natural disasters like a hurricane on an island like the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, or even what we're experiencing right now with COVID, how does your solution help communities in the whole food security side of things?
Well, okay, so food security has two meanings to two different people, right? So if you're on the margins of society, food security is, how do I even buy my food? That's typically how we've heard the term used, but now food security is for pretty much anybody in the social economic levels, because food travels, and that's the big issue. Typically in North America, the bread baskets in my space, of course, we're talking about fresh food, right? We're talking about vegetables, tomatoes, salads, lettuces, those kinds of things. We're not talking about, that's where I'm focusing on. The bread basket primarily is California, Arizona, Mexico. So when you think about it, your food typically travels 1,500 to 2,000 miles. It actually is a worldwide problem. When it doesn't rain in Spain, there's no lettuce in London. Other parts of the world have, Robobank has a whole big picture of how much food travels. So it's a very, very large issue. So right now, in any kind of natural disaster, anything that affects the food supply provides no food security for people. So last year, it started with the wall that the Americans are putting up between Mexico. A lot of in California, all the southern states. When I say southern, I mean California right across. I don't mean southern like Alabama. Right across. A lot of the work is done by migrant workers. So as soon as the wall was placed up, or that whole approach was taken, it made so there was no workers. And so we were finding, even last year in Georgia, farmers couldn't find anybody to do any of the work. It's hard work. It's field work. So it's a big problem. Now with COVID-19, people aren't able to move. So physically, there's just nobody moving anywhere, nobody doing anything. And farmers now are not even planting in California. Read a number of reports. I mean, this is my space. So I'm really into it. So a lot of problems with, and if you don't plant now, there's not going to be any food in September. That's essentially it. Now, I'm not suggesting that there's going to be zero food. I'm suggesting that, even 10 or 15% will cause havoc in the food systems. So, okay, so that's the problem, what we're solving. And if you think about a city like, let's say Toronto, 6 million people, 6 million people. Just rule of thumb, people eat about 2.5 ounces of salad or some sort of salad. You eat a hamburger, you have a piece of tomato, you have a lettuce in there, you have a potato. So you're looking at 2.5 ounces a day. So 6 million times 2.5 ounces divided by 16 gives you a couple million pounds a day that is required. And if you have any kind of burp in that supply system, we saw with toilet paper, shelves are empty, right? Well, food, you have shelf life and everything else. Okay, so the problem is big. And the numbers I did very quick, but I just wanted, the problem is huge. Where our solution is very simple. We go into a facility, into a building, a warehouse. We've actually built stuff in schools as well. Any kind of building that's got a 15-foot high ceiling, and we can grow the vegetables right there locally. And so the supply problem just kind of disappears. So if you're in Calgary, we can grow in Calgary for Calgary all year round, 12 months a year. Highly sustainable. There's no pesticides, no fungicides, no herbicides. So it's great for the environment. And basically we can solve the food supply problem. That portion of it.
I think you're going to see more and more of this happen too, because like you said, right now, you take your food supply for granted until it's not there. It's like the toilet paper situation. We all assume we go to Walmart and everything's going to be there. But when something like this happens, a major disruption, all of a sudden you realize, my stuff actually doesn't come from next door. It comes from, Mexico or Ecuador or China. And so all of a sudden you realize how somewhat vulnerable you are. And so something like this, I think, is a very interesting solution. And I think more and more communities are going to look at that as a potential. As far as job creation, so if you set up a facility, you've got, say, the minimum, the 15,000 square feet, you've got it all set up, ready to go. What number of jobs would that mean? Like, how many people would it take to keep that thing going?
That we're looking at around 25 jobs per facility.
Jobs per growing operation.
These are regular factory type jobs. Anywhere from $15 to $20 an hour, kind of regular jobs. They're good jobs. They're healthy jobs. Working in a nice environment. We can actually expand the number of jobs, because one of the big steps that we do is, of course, we create what's it's called ready to eat salads. So it's not the stuff that you see in the regular shelf. It's the stuff that's in the refrigerator. So you just open it up, you dump it into the bag. That requires a machine that does the filling. So we're using machinery to fill. We can actually expand the number of jobs by not using that machine and having people do it by hand. There's a lot of companies that do that. The advantage, of course, we can increase the number of jobs. The profit margins aren't so good for our licensees, but especially the environment coming into right now. Like today, I was doing some analysis yesterday and today, and there's 20% unemployment in the United States right now. Just to understand how significant it was, the last time it was at that level of unemployment was in 1933. I'm a big history buff. The stock market crashed in 1929. It took late October 29. So it took almost 2.5 to 3 years for the economy hit the bottom and hit that 20% rate from the time of 29. We did this in 6 weeks. We hit that unemployment rate in the United States in 6 weeks. I don't know what the Canadian number is. I would quote the Canadian number, obviously, but the American number is huge, and the American economy has been the driver around the world, and we're being affected everywhere. So
and so when I think about people that are going to come out on the other side of this with no job, and maybe looking to reinvent themselves, looking for a new career, looking for something, and maybe this is a good alternative. They think, okay, I have space. I mean, a lot of places, and I know in Calgary, there's a lot of warehouse space available right now. So you think, okay, so if you can get a good deal on some space, it takes, you get the equipment set up, you've got your own business running, and you're making a difference. You're providing a product that people need.
Yeah, and then there's lots of spin-off businesses, right? So my core business is around the salads, or it's the ready-to-eat salads. But there are a lot of other foods that people drink. The smoothies and all these other things that actually take the vegetables and process them. Behind me, you can see right in the center our kale, right? So we don't produce kale, but people can buy our kale and create kale chips. So it's like another type of food business. So there's many food businesses that can grow out of there. We haven't tested, but we're pretty certain we can grow hops. So people they can have fresh hops grown and create brews and food. And I think the world. I mean, we're getting a little sidetracked here, but I kind of like to do that. I think people are learning to live at home over the last month, and I think we're going to come out of this. Besides, the whole social distancing thing and everything else, people are going to spend a lot more time at home and have learned to, hey, you know what? I don't need to go out every night to a restaurant or whatever else. I can do, I can do many more home things. And people are learning to develop new techniques and new things to do at home. So I think there's going to be a whole new world that's going to come out that in some ways might be good. I mean, hopefully we figure out jobs and economics and everything else for people. But I think the world will get it's like a big reset button on, hey, the way we're headed. That's my 2 cents. I don't know if it's
That's great. I mean, I think we'll wrap up. Is there anything else that you might have you didn't get to say that you wanted to mention?
No, it's great. We'd love to work with economic development people around the Canada, across the country, in the United States. I guess you have some American listeners. We're doing a lot of interesting things in the States. I'd love to do stuff in Canada. I'm a Canadian. It's Canadian technology. So we'd love to reproduce what we're doing in the States in Canada if it's possible.
Yeah. Well, I'll put a link in the video description so people can find out more about your company and how to get in touch with you. So thank you very much. Wish you all the best, and let's hope we see more of these across Canada in the very near future.
Terrific. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Zale.
Okay. Bye-bye.